χώρος χαλούσε όλη την εικόνα.
In fact, that's been worked out.
Yeah. And John and Dimitri worked very hard, but there are some other volunteers who I see regularly here.
So that whenever I say, ooh, we ought to buy that, she kind of goes, hang on a second, can we afford it? So, absolutely essential part of the volunteer group.
Yeah. And there are many other volunteers who come, who I've seen here regularly. A young teacher who I saw here, and John will probably tell you about other volunteers. But I'm going to hand over to John to give you a bit of a history of how the library came to be, and particularly an interesting intervention from the members from California, of which their secretary, Vicky Praioli, Kalenzos, Kulientanos, Ariferis, is here from California, and we welcome you, Vicky, and we thank you for all your support, because all that small support ends up being allowing us to do a big edible rather than a small edible from California. We thank you very much. And her friend, who was very much a long-time associate, Vicky is a teacher in California, and her friend was a teacher's aide. She has come as well. So thank you for California, and Yanni Mavromatis, who spent many years in America looking after the schools in America. You might know him as well. From Bitsinadas, thanks for coming, Yanni, with your friends and your family. And I'll hand over to John to give you a bit of a background history of how this library came to be.
Well, I'd like to start, since you mentioned Vicky, by expressing the thanks of the library group to Vicky and her friends in California for their ongoing support of the library, and as a small token of our esteem and gratitude,
do we know who this is?
yes, it's Eleni Kaliyeru, and what it is, it's a modern print, archival print of a portrait from the Faxeas archive, which the Aroni Trust in Australia helped enormously towards its preservation. And in fact, we have a small exhibition now of images from there, and this is a copy. We make, as it were, certified copies from the original negatives. And as they say, all the authentic versions have to be signed. And this is personally one of my favorite images.
Thank you.
Well, it's no coincidence that Vicky is here with us. We owe the existence of this library today very much, I would say almost entirely, to Kithurians from overseas. The building itself was the primary school of Mondoganica, and a lot of people, my generation or a little older, went to school here, and one of the pleasures of running this library has been being here when people come in and say, my desk used to be there.
Just right here. So, anyone else here from the school? My brother here. And there will be other people who will come later who are school people.
So
from the school.
This was part of the school building project that took place in Greece a little bit before the war and continued afterwards. And like many other primary schools around the island, as you all know, the island has a widely scattered population, which means that despite having a small number of population per square kilometre, the population has always been scattered around very many villages, which meant there were many primary schools. When the Ministry of Education decided to run as many of these as possible together as a measure of economy of scale, these schools were closed, and when about 17 years ago, the municipality inherited what used to be the small local governments, they also inherited the real estate. So this building, though closed up and covered in dust, passed into the ownership of the municipality of Kythera, the Demos of Kythera. And nothing happened for a number of years. About 9 years ago, the municipality decided that this would be a good place to turn into a library, and as you can see, they were quite right. And some municipal funds were raised to repair and restore the building structurally. This meant things like putting in a new floor ceiling, reinforcing the roof to make certain it didn't fall down, putting in new window frames, even though those are going to have to be changed fairly soon. So the building was more or less ready, but it completely lacked the necessary infrastructure for a library. And at that point, the work having been done, as happens all too often in Greece, the doors were locked and everybody went away, and that was it. What changed the situation radically was the fact that a Cyprian living in California happened to work for the municipality of a middling-sized city called Alhambra, and the city was rich enough to build itself a new, very large public library. This is them, all around you. And that was a major, major project because they had to be shipped all the way from the west coast of the United States to Piraeus and from Piraeus here. And all this took the better part of a year and required the raising of very large sums of money. So this was started, and the shelves were on their way here, but there still seemed to be no preparation for actually running a library. So some of us made a formal proposal to the municipality, suggesting that since we were already deep into the national financial crisis, which you all know about, and it was fairly obvious that the municipality would not be able to hire librarians, we suggested that the library be run by volunteers. Well, again, this was a hard concept for any municipality to accept. So nothing happened for about a year and a half after this proposal, even though every couple of months we would gently nudge the mayor and the deputy mayor and say, well, how about it? And finally, our Australian and American friends got thoroughly pissed off by this and wrote a few letters to the municipality saying, oi, you've got the building, you've got the infrastructure, you've got people willing to run it. Can you give us any rational explanation why nothing is happening? And all of a sudden, the municipality turned around and said, okay, we'll let you have a go. Well, at first this was quite difficult because it was hedged about with all kinds of wonderful restrictions. But as usually happens, once we got started effectively and they saw that we seemed to know what we were doing, the work proceeded. Now, we had the library, we had the building, we had the shelving equipment, we had people to run it, and we had books. I have to say something about where these books come from. A large proportion of these books came from what was known, and many of you will know this, as the Children's Library in Vivaldi. In fact, that was a misnomer, because it wasn't just a children's library, it included a lot of adult books. And this was a wonderful library that was part of a nationwide system of libraries outside the main metropolitan areas. And it was run by an independent foundation. Unfortunately, the foundation came to the end of its life, and the Vivaldi Library was closed down, I think about and the books just stayed there, getting dustier and presumably nibbled by mice. And again, we had a big fight on our hands to get these books, not with the foundation, which was defunct and out of the way, but again, there was a whole bureaucracy that said, well, we can't let you have the books because what if somebody wants them back? And we said, well, nobody wants them back because the foundation no longer exists. Yes, but somebody might turn up, they might have a claim, and in that case, what would you do? So we said, we promise, cross my heart and heart to die, hope to die, we'll keep a strict record of what they are, and if anybody wants them back, you're welcome to have half a ton of books, and what they do with them is up to them. So we got the books, and then we also got various smaller collections that had accumulated in Hora, in other villages, and then almost immediately we started getting some very impressive donations. And this huge stack of books here is only a fraction of what came in, and my honourable colleague Dimitri volunteered, quote unquote, to be the man who registers all the incoming books. And ever since he volunteered for this, the poor man hasn't been swimming once all summer. And what he does, day after day, is he fills in this book. Because everything that comes in has to be registered. And Dimitri being who he is, everything is registered very religiously indeed. So we had books, we had the infrastructure, and we had the building. We didn't have anybody to run it. But even though it's run by unpaid volunteers, there's still ongoing expenses. And this is where ta-da, Mr. George Poulos appeared. And where Vicky appeared and said, okay, we'll give you some money to run it. At which point another problem came up, because they all said, yes, but we're not giving it to the municipality. And the reason for that is that once you give it to the municipality, not only is a huge chunk taken out in taxes, but if I or Dimitri want to buy a new ballpoint pen, we have to submit an application in triplicate, and the entire council has to deliberate and agree on it. So we might or might not get a ballpoint pen 3 months down the road. So what happened at that point is there's an independent, charitable, non-profit organisation down Kiefer, of which I'm president, which is the Ethereum Cultural Association. The association was responsible for publishing both those books, and did so with the financing largely of the Aroni Trust in Australia. As a non-profit organisation, we have to file financial returns once a year with the tax authorities, and the Australians already knew us. We'd worked very smoothly on this, so we agreed that we would take over, we would accept rather, any funds made available for the use of the library or associated projects, and we would administer it on behalf of the library, doling out the money as necessary, and giving the benefactors accounts of how it was disposed of on a yearly basis. So just to give you an indication of the kind of things we spent money on, first thing we did was we bought blinds for these windows because the sun comes barreling in the afternoon. We acquired a printer, a scanner, some furniture, quite a lot of paperwork. You'd be surprised how much you need in the way of ledgers and pens and pencils and material for children when you have them here playing. Quite early on, we got a special present from the Ethereum Brotherhood of Australia of 6, call them iPads, tablets anyway, for the use of children on the island. And the idea of these is once the school year gets going, we're going to start making use of them. Children can come here and use them. They can't take them away. Because, as Yanis pointed out, one of the reasons for bringing children in here is not merely that they should read and learn about books, it's also a chance to socialise. If they're going to have their noses stuck in a tablet, they might as well do it here in a group and under some supervision than stuck in a bedroom at home. So quite a lot, and there's more coming. We're expecting a computer in the next few days, a very large Mac computer. We have to buy more furniture, and there's going to be ongoing things. We're going to need more blinds for the front of the building. The next bit of expensive hardware we're going to need is a digital projector, so that we can have film shows in the summer outside. And then the next really big chunk of charitable support that we got is again due to George Poulos, which was the yard outside. And I think in a moment we should all go and inspect it. When we came here, what you had outside was basically a barren field full of thorns, and the remains of 4 collapsing columns at one end. And basically, not only was it not appealing, it was a place you definitely would not want to spend any time in. One of the first things that George and some of his Australian colleagues said is that we really needed to do up to landscape the yard in order to make it not just an appealing place, but also a place that could be used for other events. Because one thing that all of us volunteers, and Dimitri and Eleni and I insisted on from the beginning, is that this should be something more than a book depository. The island doesn't have a cultural centre, and it's not likely to have one for a long time, unfortunately. So we thought, well, this isn't actually bad as a headquarters, as a base for cultural activities. It's roughly halfway down the middle of the island. We don't have much space in here, admittedly, but we do have an organisation, we have volunteers, and now, of course, we have a landscape yard. So our intention is, throughout the year, particularly in the winter, when Ethereans are thrown largely on their own resources, is to have as many possible cultural events, collaborating closely with some of the many other cultural groups of the island. There's theatre groups, there's dance groups, there's yoga groups, There's a book club which we plan to resuscitate. There's a lot of things happening. I know. I'm snuck in behind me. There's the Friends of the Museum. There's a lot of things happening on the island. What they've lacked, so said, I want to do up the yard. I said, yeah, sure. It's going to cost a bomb. It'll take years. We'll never get the permits. Well, he turned up at the beginning of the summer with his pockets bulging with cash. I think he'd been in the poker game or something like that. He said, I've got the dosh. I said, fine. So I contacted a cousin of mine who's one of the most eminent architects in Greece, Ilias Vassiliadis. And I said, well, you know, you've built about 3 or 4 houses on the island. I'm going to twist your arm now, and you're going to do something charitable for us. And you're going to come and see this place, and I want you to design a plan for landscaping it, which he did. So we had an excellent plan. We also had the assistance of a civil engineer who oversaw the technical aspects. Uncle George here turned up with the cash, and Arafat, where are you?
There he is, yeah.
And this is the man who made it all possible in about 2 weeks, and I still don't believe he did it. And frankly, I think he's Alibaba and that he robbed the land to get it happened. Because I have never, ever seen any work completed, never mind Heathrow, anywhere in Greece so fast. And actually even quite well.
He said he would do it in 18 days, and John said that was his mouth went like it. Anyway, what happened? He finished in 16 days. We've got 1 little bit to go.
I laughed at not go like that. I said, George, you're bullshitting me. Yeah.
Well, yeah, a little bit like that as well. Can I acknowledge the presence of Spiro Panagiotis here, who is the head of the Cultural Association of the Matiko Kendra Podamos. We just put on the big Panagiri. And we hopefully, what I'm hoping this particular area will do is show you or show the island that if we work together, one political side here, many other factions, people in America, people in England, people in Australia, we all work together, what we can achieve. This is an example of what we can achieve. And if we can use this as an example, we can help Spiro to put a roof on the Anglicoscolis, or Criazes de Parapolis. So this is an example in Spiro and Eleni with the Archaeological Museum. If we can get people to work together in that way, then we can keep achieving things for the island. Otherwise, the way we were before, everyone fighting here, someone didn't want to do this for a political reason, we get nowhere. So the great pride I have here is how we brought so many different people together, many of them probably who didn't speak to each other in the old days, and yet they still came together to do this. But particularly to Rafat, my good friend, who I've known for 8 years, a very good job on the
So I'd like to suggest that we go out and look at these beautiful works, and let us all big thank you to Eleni for this wonderful spread that she conjured up.
Of the Catherian Association of Australia, the Catherian Group in California, and the Nicholas Anthony Aroni Trust of Australia, to whom we owe a lot of great Edgar here. So as long as we're all clear that George Billis isn't contributing a great deal. That's the first thing.
Time and effort, at least.
Time and effort.
Time and effort, at least.
I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Distan, who has the granite shop. If you see it coming down, the granite shop. If you've never been there, it has a very sophisticated computer program with a very sophisticated machine which can do any sign you want to any size. It's the most sophisticated machine on the island. I think it's the only one. And Distan very kindly offered, but we refused his offer, to provide the 2 beautiful signs at the front of the building of the library for free. But as I say, we refused his offer, but it's a very kind gesture. The signs are up there if you want to see them. They've been very beautifully done on a very sophisticated machine of Distan, and we should give him a clap for being done.
Well, as I said, when barely a month ago, this was a field of thorns. So what's been done, well, the outer wall was crumbling, so it was repaired in a number of places. It's been given a new coat of rendering. That wall, you can see there's a run, very beautiful run of worked stone, which Rafat was responsible for. That's all new. My architect will be delighted to see you're all sitting down on this little wall, because that was precisely the idea, that a little wall should be built just high enough to serve as seating, and on the inside, come the autumn, we're going to have planting. So all along the outer walls and along the footpath leading in, we're going to have a selection of aromatic shrubs. We're going to come to an agreement with one of the local nurseries, both for the planting and the tending, so that hopefully when you come back next to see it, originally the architect, Mr. Vasilyadis, had been told to exercise extreme economy. Well, that stopped the day George arrived, and he sort of said, no, I want the most expensive there is. So what we've got is, first of all, these three pillars were completely rebuilt, knocked down and rebuilt, and they form the supports for this shade that's there basically to provide a place for people to sit and read in the summer and in the autumn. It can also be used as a kind of stage, including the path in front of it, for drama productions or for lectures. The next thing George decided to do was to repaint the entire building. So now we have a wonderful screen for cinema projections, which is why, hint, hint, I said that we need to raise the money for a projector.
How much money will that cost?
Just a couple of more things. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Dionysius Kouliantosi, famous poet of the island. And thank you for coming, Dionysius. We love your poetry, and it's famous around the world. And
we have 6 copies of his books in the library.
And we have 6 copies of his books in the library. And Yoris Zanos Kafkos, thank you for coming. He's one of the great painters of Kidera, a very inspired artist, and he lives in Ayosilia, so this is his territory. Thank you for coming, George Zanos. And I'd particularly like to thank the Mayor, who has really had the vision of this library from the moment that he was elected to office. Even simple things like we put a ramp in that wasn't there before, which was a vision of the Mayor's, so that disabled people could go into a disabled toilet which has been built. So the Mayor has been very, very much for this project from the start, and I want to thank you very much for it. And I'd like to ask you to say a few words, and we thank you very much.
Although that we are not here for speeches, I would like to say a few words, but I would prefer to say it in Greek, since you all understand Greek, and we are in a Greek library, and we are not in Australia now. So I'd like first of all to thank everybody for being here tonight, and to thank everybody who has helped, either sending the money from Australia or America for this project, and particularly those that George mentioned before, and John Stathatos. So I will continue in Greek. Θέλω να ευχαριστήσω όλους σας για κάθε συμβολή, είτε μικρή είτε μεγάλη, για αυτή τη βιβλιοθήκη. Όπως είπε και ο George Πούλος, όταν εξελέγην διεπίστωσα αμέσως από το 2007 ότι έλειπε από το νησί μία δημοτική βιβλιοθήκη. Έτσι, με προσωπική επιλογή, διάλεξα αυτό το κτίριο που ήταν παλιό δημοτικό σχολείο, γιατί βρίσκεται περίπου στη μέση του νησιού και ήταν και ένα πολύ όμορφο κτίριο, το οποίο όμως ήθελε αρκετά χρήματα για να επισκευαστεί. Κάναμε τη μελέτη, εγκρίθηκε από το Δημοτικό Συμβούλιο και στη συνέχεια εντάξαμε την ανακαίνιση, την πλήρη ανακαίνιση του κτιρίου στο πρόγραμμα Θησέας. Δεν θυμάμαι ακριβώς τον προϋπολογισμό του έργου, ήταν περίπου 150.000 ευρώ αν θυμάμαι καλά, μαζί με το ΦΠΑ, να έρθουν και να ζητήσω μαζί με τις ευχαριστίες μου και την ευγνωμοσύνη μου να συνεχίσετε να ενδιαφέρεστε για αυτό το χώρο, να τον κάνουμε όσο γίνεται πιο ζωντανό, πιο δημιουργικό, και το όραμά μου είναι η βιβλιοθήκη αυτή, η Δημοτική των Κιθήρων, να γίνει σε σύντομο χρονικό διάστημα μία από τις καλύτερες επαρχιακές βιβλιοθήκες της Ελλάδος.